Hi Libra, welcome to your October 2016 General Tarot reading. Okay, so as I had mentioned when I was doing the love readings, I have been wondering about just doing these types of readings which don't focus on one topic over another. And so far it seems pretty clear that most people like to have separate love readings. And so if you want to weigh in on the subject, just put some comment down below in the section for comments and tell me whether you would rather just have general readings as opposed to an additional love reading, because as I have stated prior to this, I can see both sides of it. And this is like a perfect example of that, because as I pulled these cards, I mean, it could be about anything, but I did see a very definite business vibe to it, career vibe. So it seems that, if I had, done a general reading and it was love, then it would be kind of a little bit redundant since I'm doing a separate love reading. And so that's another reason why I question these sort of things. But luckily, it seems more career related, so I'm going to go with that. And without further ado, the overall energy is the Nine of Wands, and I'm like afraid to adjust my camera because I've had issues, so I'm just going to, hopefully you can see this card. The Nine of Wands is about you in October, for whatever reason, feeling like you're, a guard in front of the fortress, and you're trying to make sure that no enemy combatants or intruders get through the gates. And this is kind of a, you could say, defensive posture, but it's not that you're defending yourself directly. It's more like you're a veteran soldier and you have to serve one more tour of duty for whatever reason. You have to go back into the fray, or there may be, this could be telling you that you need to keep your guard up a little bit. I'm not saying be paranoid, obviously, but that someone may try to kind of weasel in there. And somehow, well, how would they do it with a Libran? Well, they would flatter you, and that would be all it takes to get you back in their good graces. Or is it your good graces? But anyway, to have you kind of let your guard down and then go back into a situation which is really not a good place to be. Because of the fact it was Wands, I was thinking in terms of business, because that's the connection there. And sure enough, for the recent past, we get the King of Pentacles. And this is for sure somebody who is a business owner. So this could have been the boss, since kings and bosses, but, this could represent the type of work. It could be in a financial institution, like a bank, or maybe an accounting firm. It could be something along those lines, but whatever is going on, you maybe the boss and you had words, and then he tries to call you up and say, oh, look, I didn't mean that, right? But you have already had run-ins with this person. And sometimes these leaders, these bosses, or whatever, a person who's in authority, sometimes they're very charismatic, but they're very manipulative as well. And it could also be that for whatever reason you kind of got fed up with the place you were working and you decided to become a boss and become your own boss and really took that mantle of the person running the show. As a cardinal sign, it's actually a natural position for a Libra to become a boss and to deal with it. I think the only thing that Librans kind of shy away from is the conflict involved having to, necessarily deal with the unpleasantries that can happen when people don't, like underlings, don't do what you want them to do, and that sort of conflict, and not wanting to have to deal with that, and also any other things that are related to having people be mad at you or something like that. That might be the thing that is very unpleasant to you. But the actual calling the shots part, I think, is something that you naturally gravitate towards. So it might have been the next logical step for you to do that. I have a feeling that some of you are staying in a place that is a little bit past its due date, that maybe you should have left a long time ago, and for whatever reason you have a hard time dealing with it, and something happens that forces you out of that comfort zone. This reading is very similar to another reading that I just did, and I don't know if it was your counterpart Aries. It might have been. I tend to forget those kind of things, but some of the cards are very similar in different positions. So it might have been Taurus that got this, but it's that comfort zone that, and especially when you have your chart done or you look at it yourself and you see, oh, I have the moon in Taurus or I have the moon in Cancer. And so that can exacerbate that need for security and make you less likely to jump ship when you feel like it's an inharmonious situation at work. So something outside of you may need to come in to be the catalyst. And it could also be that something is discovered, in which case it might even work to your benefit. If you've been having trouble with your boss and then they find out that your boss is actually doing something dishonest, then they might replace him or her, and then you don't have to worry about leaving yourself. Because, it's been said, or maybe someone very close to me said, that it's never the work, it's always the people. And I tend to agree with that. The higher message is the Fool card, and that's kind of like what I got for the other sign too. It's really about I see it as a freewheeling type of an energy of, the person who doesn't really have a care in the world. For some people who can actually do it, if somehow, let's say, worst case scenario, and you were to get fired, what could happen is that if you have the money, you might want to take some time off and just travel and just let go of everything. Maybe you just sell everything you own and you don't put it in storage. You literally pare down. Maybe you've been staying at a job because you've had to have a way to maintain a lifestyle that is really cumbersome. It's so high maintenance, and maybe you're working you were working long hours to make enough money to have a McMansion or a house that was way larger than you needed to have, because you needed a place to store all your stuff and you were being possessed by your possessions. Well, the Fool is traveling with just a knapsack. So maybe paring down is just what you need to do. And that eclipse, that solar eclipse that happened on the 1st of September, occurred in your 12th house. And so that is the spiritual house. So it's like a new spiritual beginning may have dawned in September for you and could still play out in the months to come. It's not only in September that this can have an influence, probably for the next half a year. And you did have a what was it that happened in March? There was a lunar eclipse in, I'm pretty sure it was in Virgo. And so this is like kind of bookends of those two, endings and new beginnings. But the new beginning is in the 12th house. So it's in a very obscure place. And maybe it's not easy to sense that sort of energy unless you really make an effort to tune in. So I do recommend that you do that, Libra, because I think that if you've been experiencing some shocking events, or at least a lot of activity, then it would behoove you to kind of get that sorted out on the spiritual level so that you're not kind of unsettled by it. Because you do have how many major arcanas here? 1, 2, 3. And I only drew 8 cards altogether. So you might find during October, especially since, and you know, it just escaped me, this is your birthday month, this is your solar return. On September 30th will be your new moon of the year. So that is really cool as well. Now for a good many of you, the new moon in, which I think is going to be October 30th, that might be your new time. That might be the time when the Fool card is going to come to the fore, you know, going into November, because unless you're born in October, or your rising sign is in like the first 10 degrees, well, what is the degree mark of that? I think it's 8 degrees actually of Libra, unless it's that, you know, the first 8 degrees of Libra rising, and then, you know, being born basically in October. If you're born in October or after 8 degrees of Libra, you're going to have that new moon in September actually in your 12th house. So that's something to really think about in terms of new beginnings, because it won't be until the end of October that you will see that new moon in your first house, okay? And I'm sorry if I'm confusing some people, but in any case, even though that's the Scorpio new moon, it's actually going to be your new moon because of the chart position, okay? So basically, but that's cool because that's going to occur in October. And this is going to be the higher message of that don't fear. If you feel like things are kind of dragging along, things will, I think in November, will really start to pick up for a lot of you. And for you early Librans, then you have, when the sun is in Scorpio and those planets are in Scorpio, you'll have the sun in and some of that energy in the second house of earned income. And so that's nice as well, because that could increase your finances. So don't worry about any kind of situation with your career. If the unknown happens, you just go with it, is basically what this card is saying. This is the spiritual thing to go through and to acknowledge it on the spiritual level. What crosses you is related by Temperance, and this would be in the reverse position. And this is about some sort of imbalance, and you are all about balance. So I think that in your workplace, it could have been a situation where somebody tried to take advantage of your accommodating nature, and they may have tried to ask you to work longer hours. It happens a lot these days, from what I hear. Anyway, where you're getting paid the same amount of money, but you're kind of covering for other people because they don't want to hire new people. So basically, you're doing the work of 1.5 people, or just more than you used to have to do, and you haven't gotten any kind of a raise. So those kinds of scenarios where maybe they flatter you, maybe they try to get in good with you, but they're somehow scamming you. And that might be what has caused you to feel dissatisfied there. That kind of situation is something that you have to nip in the bud. If you do leave, you may have the same thing replay itself. So the way to do this is to really look at the situation at face value and say, is this a balanced situation? Am I getting fairly compensated? Am I having very clear boundaries on what are going to be my work hours, my vacation time, and everything else? Or is everything up in the air and it's kind of uncertain? So I don't really like that kind of scenario. And likewise, your attitude towards the situation has to be balanced. You can't have extreme viewpoints. Some people are either very indifferent to what they're doing, or they're very on board. But you may love what you do, but if you're not being treated fairly, it's going to be problematic for sure. And the reason I'm even bringing this up is because some of you may be looking to either start something new or to go somewhere new. Either start your own business or go somewhere else where you feel like you can escape this treatment. But I'm just warning you that you may repeat the patterns if you do not stand up for yourself from day one. And this is kind of like that sort of energy as well. It's like being vigilant about what people are trying to do. If they're trying to walk all over you, if they're trying to kind of somehow trick you into doing more work than you're supposed to be doing. Now, just like I suspected, this is kind of the energy to kind of get a little bit comfortable with. And this is about Two of Pentacles can be a job offer. A lot of times this is about somebody who's juggling their finances or juggling 2 jobs. And I did sense entrepreneurial energy in this reading, and it could be that you are trying to make something happen, but it's something you're doing at night or on-off hours. And maybe it's kind of distracting you and you're not sure, but you don't want to give up that main job. Maybe you've been there for years, or it's a sure thing and you're thinking, well, in today's economy, you're lucky to have a job, so I don't want to upset the apple cart, something like that. But you're still trying to do something on the side. And so it's definitely suggesting that to start thinking about doing that if you're not already. You could be talking about passive sources of income. For instance, if you have a property that you manage or were thinking of managing, and then it wouldn't take time out from your day job. But that would only be appropriate for people who are not experiencing problems with their boss in the workplace. If you're experiencing problems in your day job and you're fairly convinced that nothing that you say is going to change all of that, then it would behoove you to think of transitioning into something else altogether. Because even if you're making a lot less money, again, if you can simplify your life, it's not going to be as much of a problem. The only reason that people have to make X amount of money is if they have a lot of, regularly scheduled bills. That's one of the reasons why, the tiny home movement has taken off, and flex time has become something that people have wanted to do. And just all of the things that have sprung up from, this really, it seems like it's a widespread issue of people feeling like the place that they work, that they're not being honored for what they're doing. And that for whatever reason, their bosses are looking at them more as, objects than as members of the company family, as people were treated, once upon a time. A lot, people were treated much more as a member of the family than just a commodity. But, things have changed in the economy in general, and that has kind of created this mentality, and then people are trained almost to treat their employees this way. And I think one reason is so that if they don't treat them fully humanly, then they don't have to worry if they suddenly decide to kick them to the curb, because then it means that it's easier to do when you don't have an emotional connection to them in the first place. So I definitely think some of you are going to be trying to get something started, and because it's your solar return, you may be just in that mood anyway, because you're kind of coming out of a bit of a hibernation in a lot of ways. When the sun is in the 12th house, which for you is when it's in Virgo, it's a time when you get very, you may get uncharacteristically hermit-like and more contemplative, in other words, reflecting more on your life, and maybe less social than you typically are, and then you kind of spring back to life. And we I'm posting this and recording this before half the month of September is over, and it's in the midst of a Mercury retrograde in Virgo in your 12th house. So in September, you're going over old thoughts, ideas, and this can be rather unnerving, especially for a Libra that tends to over intellectualize things from time to time. So having to kind of unearth these unpleasant thoughts or even feelings in the month of, or during the time of October, September, I should say, for the Mercury retrograde, and then the sun goes there, the sun is in there, but I mean the other energy goes into that 12th house. It just can be very, very uncomfortable for some people, especially. And then the advice is the 5 of Swords. Now you are connected to swords, so this is a reflection, I think, more than an actual advice to do something. Although it could be saying, and I did get this for another sign, the same one, saying, watch who you trust. Watch who you think is on your side, because they might not be. And I don't like saying things like that, because I really do believe that we should live our lives more like the Fool, and more like somebody who trusts innately the motives of other people. But a lot of what's happening, it may seem like it's coming from one source, like a boss, but it's really coming from the underlings who are your co-workers, who may be envious of you. Maybe they're afraid that you're going to be the one that is the rising star, and so they are sabotaging you. This is a card of sabotage. But I feel like it's mostly on the it's not like necessarily anything that they're physically doing. It's more like trash talking and things like that, distortion, gossip, to try to get one up on you. And you may be just like blithely, doing your job and thinking that they are on your side, and meanwhile you'd be very surprised to learn otherwise, wouldn't you? So that this may have something to do with that, and maybe it's just saying that you really need to. I think in a workplace, the best thing that people can do is just to keep to themselves. You can obviously be polite, but not to get too necessarily involved personally with the people that you work with the boss. Just kind of keep that separate, because you've heard that saying that you don't, I'll put it nicely, defecate where you eat. I think that would be a good saying to go along with that, because, especially if you're not really that passionate about what you're doing and you're just doing it for a paycheck, until you can make that side job be your main gig. You just want to ensure that things run smoothly, and I just personally think that it makes it easier when you compartmentalize a little bit, but that's just me. You have to do what feels right to you. But the outcome is the Two of Cups. Now this can be a card that represents, for some people, it can be a marriage card, if that's something that's going on in your life. Now I've been focusing on business, so if because it's a two, it can indicate choice, and the cups indicate something that you feel emotionally connected to. Now you notice I've been getting pentacles. It could be that you're having a hard time leaving something that is very financially profitable. I can't say the proper word, but something that is more lucrative, and that's keeping you there. That might be what's keeping you there, but the heart will eventually win over, where you just can't do it anymore. It's just not you. And that might be something that you gravitate towards, something that's more of your, an expression of your soul. And that becomes more important to you. But it could be that you go into business with somebody else, because a two can indicate a partnership. And Librans are natural partners. You rule the 7th house of partners. So it makes sense that if you have a friend and you're thinking, hey, I've always wanted to have a little boutique, maybe you'll do that. And you'll have fun because you're going to be doing it with your friend. And it's your thing, it's your dreams and your vision. For other people, it might just be that whatever it is that you do now, you decide to become a consultant or something like that, and then you have partners. Maybe you're like seeking out clients and stuff, and the two of Cups could be indicating the one-on-one type of relationship that you cultivate with these people, so that it's not something that is very abstract or impersonal, but you provide a personal touch to what you're doing. So I definitely feel that October should be important for you, and the fact that it's your birthday month isn't lost on me, because I do feel that you have new beginnings. Some of you more like September 30th and some on October 30th, but in either case, happy birthday, Libra, and good luck to you. Take care. Bye.